GM. So for weeks and weeks, I told you guys about this potential Wyckoff distribution that I was seeing over here. I told you guys that if we get the daily close below 107.2k, that range low, then it's likely going to confirm that distribution and lead to this markdown. So for any of you wondering what to do on the high time frame, I made a video for you showing you exactly the ideas I'm looking at for my long-term portfolio strategy next cycle. That's over here, one of my highest viewed videos. Make sure to check that out. Because we are continuing the markdown as it stands, but today's morning markets, and we're going to look at intraday levels, which favors actually a bounce and taking longs. Because even in downtrends, you still get bounces, and when you're overextended from something like a 50-day EMA, as you can see here, very far below it, the further you get below it, the more likely you are to have a bounce just for a quick mean reversion setup as price gets too oversold. So today, that's what we're going to be looking for. On the left here, you have the post-liquidation range. So this is everything from that liquidation wick to the first bounce. I've taken a range where you've got the premium zone at the top. That's between the 0.25 to the 0. You've got the discount zone at the bottom. That's the 0.75 to the 1. And those deviation levels marked in red. So close outside the deviation level, then that means the range is broken, going into either uptrend or further downtrend. But the closer we get, either in this discount zone or towards that lower deviation zone, the better risk reward there is for longs as long as it doesn't break, and vice versa up here for shorts. You can see that's played out pretty nicely over here. You've had sweeps, great short entries, longs, great entries in the discount zone. Now, can we find some sort of high risk reward long setup once again? So this was not yesterday's range anymore, but from yesterday's video I mentioned, I took the range of the previous day's candle, which is actually this candle over here. So Wednesday's candle. So we will mark that out now, update that. This is the range of this green candle over here. So zooming in on the right hand side, I want to look at how price is reacting since bulls tried to buy up Bitcoin, tried to put in some sort of reversal, because that's going to tell me on those lower time frames, which give a bit of a faster signal but are less reliable, what could be happening here, and could we see earlier signs of a reversal on the high time frame on these lower time frame charts. So I've now mapped out an even smaller range here. Same concepts apply, and what we're looking for again is simple. If we can see this discount zone hold, so anything between the 0.75 and this 1.2 deviation level, that could be an early sign of a low time frame reversal forming. So potentially you get a bounce, something like this, or maybe we get a setup where we sweep the lows. So that would be the equivalent of this getting swept over here on the daily before coming back up. That's where I'm potentially looking for some long setups that could come today if we continue marking down. I've really got two scenarios that I'm looking at. Either orange path, lose the 50-week EMA, and then reclaim the 50-week EMA. I'd then be looking for a long. So lose 50-week EMA, reclaim 50-week EMA equals long question mark. That's what I'll be gaming for a setup at in that scenario. That's on the 4-hour chart. And then in this example, it would be simple. Sweep below the lows. So sweep lows equals potential long. So that would be sweep the liquidity and close back inside. Then I'm looking for long setups that might even give a better invalidation because stop loss can go at the lows. So this is what I'll be looking at. I can remove this for now. These two setups for a potential long. Now, of course, if we don't sweep and we just then continue lower, that's why we wait for confirmation, because that can just signal downtrend continuation, and that will be seen on the high time frame again with just closing below this deviation level over here. So if we can find the low time frame setup, then what we want to see on the high time frame is this start to also show the signs of reversal, and that will be first seen by closing above this 0.75 on the daily. And that's when, of course, this respective range would start getting broken out of. So that's how I'm managing it, looking at it at low time frame and high time frame for any setups over here. That's the trades that I'll be looking at. So either long setup here, stop at the lows, playing it to the upper end of the range initially, if not a breakout, if the signs are there, and sweep of the lows. If we close back inside, stop gets managed there, and that gets you potentially even better risk to reward setup, but we don't know which one we're going to get, so we play it as it comes. Those are the two scenarios I'm looking at for longs. So what are we seeing on Bitcoin? Well, yesterday's video, I mentioned this order block over here. It's more so on the 1 hour. You got this big cluster of order blocks where these order blocks are continually getting respected on the downside. This is efficient selling, guys, which means sellers are very much in control because you can't break above this order block. And that led to this flush over here, led to this orange path that I mentioned. So you see yesterday's video gave you this path, told you the order block's rejecting. So watching to see if we lose that New York Open, then you're likely going to get a further flush. And I went into the order flow where I detailed on lower time frames the setup. I said, look, guys, if we can't reclaim the daily open, then if we lose that New York Open of Wednesday, you're looking at a flush lower. You're looking at these long stops over here getting targeted. And that's exactly what played out. We look over here, long stops, they all got targeted ever since we lost that New York Open, and we couldn't reclaim that daily open, couldn't even get really anywhere near it. So that played out pretty nicely so far. So let's remove some of this. What can we see from here? Well, I still think we need to reclaim some levels, and that can then lead to higher, but let's look at longs. Have they been wrecked? Let's assess it. Well, price, since it tried to push up to the open, to the low, let's take it to right now, is down 2.83%, whereas futures positioning, so the leverage market, guys, very important to look at this data. It did initially flush, so longs did close, as I predicted, below that New York Open, but now we're seeing a build up this morning, so potentially we're actually seeing people, low time frame, getting into shorts as price goes down. You're seeing perp CVD aggressively go down. Spot CVD is also going down. So while perps and spot are both selling, they're in harmony and you expect lower. But as soon as something like this low potentially over here doesn't break, or you see something like a lose it, sweep, reclaim, that's when all of these shorts that built up are now under pressure. That's when you can then look at a short squeeze. But while it's going down, shorts are right, guys. So you got to let this chart go down to wherever it's going to go to. Maybe it is going to have to take these lows over here. So you have the main low that we set on the 4th of November. Potentially you're going to have to just look lower for a reaction. And that's what you're looking for, guys, in these downtrends, to play these counter trend rallies. It's a reaction. It's a low time frame reversal that's forming. You have to be patient. You can't just long every dip. You're seeing longs are getting wrecked, longing every single dip. But if you be patient and wait for these shorts to get too overconfident and price to agree with you, so price is actually reclaiming levels and turning, you're going to do a lot better because you're longing on the right side of the V rather than longing in this area over here when price is literally going down. You instead long when price is going up. Now, doesn't that mean you're going to have a 100% win rate? Of course not. That's not how trading works. There's no 100% win rate system. So by that literal fact, you have to lose to win. But it's going to be a hell of a lot better for your systems to long when you're on the right side and price is going up than long when it's going down and fighting the trend. And I teach how to build systems inside the private school, so make sure you guys get in. If you haven't, you can drop me a Telegram message in the YouTube description. But that's the setups that we're looking for. That's the rationale behind it. Want to see where these shorts are finally wrong, because right now they're right, but is it at this liquidity, which is 100.2k, or is it actually at the 98.9k liquidity where we see a reaction and those shorts having to close out because price is not going lower, it's actually starting to reclaim and reverse? Very simple. So that's what I'm looking at on BTC. These kind of ideas, just looking for those reversal signs and reclaims, and that's when you start looking for those long setups that I mentioned on the right over here. These are the setups that I'm most interested in. So, of course, you can just continue lower. Maybe we do get something like the purple path where we just need to set a new consolidation. Literally, carbon copy, maybe something like this. Maybe we do just need to do this except from lower to build the proper bottom. That's definitely also on the cards, and maybe then that's when we actually can start putting in a proper reversal. Got to keep that in mind too, guys, because again, it's a downtrend. You've got to be flexible on longs. You can't just say, oh my God, it's got to go up because price is literally going down. It's very tricky and not something I recommend, especially to newer traders trying to long during these down periods where we are in a Wyckoff distribution, guys. We are going lower. We are in the phase E that I've been mentioning. So keep an eye on that on Bitcoin. Question is, do we manage to form a bottom here, or do we have to now have another leg lower? And something interesting I've been looking at is the Coinbase Bitcoin Premium Index. So you find this on CoinGlass, for any of you wondering. And this shows you essentially, is Coinbase trading at a premium to the other exchanges? And when Coinbase is trading higher to the other exchanges, it means there's heavier demand on Coinbase. And we know Coinbase is heavily influenced by the ETFs because that's where they do most of their buying. Maybe if you didn't know that, you now know that. So when the price of Coinbase is at a premium, that shows ETFs are bidding super hard. When it's not, that shows that ETFs are potentially selling, and there's a lack of that institutional bid, which we know has propped Bitcoin up for most of this bull run. That's been the big catalyst. So as you can see, when this is green, this is when the ETFs are bidding. This is when you have your best uptrends. But if we look at some previous examples of when we actually have a discount on Coinbase, so an absence of those buyers putting up the Coinbase price, this is when you go into your downwards periods. You eventually bottom out, have a nice bounce. But overall, you're seeing a lot of this red when Bitcoin's in its bearish phase. This was a distribution going then into the downtrend. But once you've had that red for an extended period, it also is where price tends to bottom once you see those reversal signs. Again, we look at the 2024 range that we set. Once you get these blocks of red, you see price having its big downtrends. But it then bottoms out generally during those red spikes. Takes time. Bottoming out is a process, even here around 30k. That was when we distributed, marked down, but eventually it did form that bottom. Could we be seeing something similar now? So we're just starting to see red during this bearish phase. That's why my eyes are now glued towards, okay, should we be looking for bottoms? Should we be looking on the high time frame? That's why I made that video for you guys, because it's all well and good me telling you guys Bitcoin's in distribution. And yes, it did play out, but now that it's played out, I'm forward looking. I'm here to make money, guys, not to say, hey, look, guys, I'm right. Now I'm looking for where can this chart actually bottom, because the time to be bearish, the time to be risk off was when it was in this range forming a potential distribution, when it was sweeping all of these highs. And that's where I sold all my cycle bags over here in August. When it's actually breaking down is now the time to say, okay, now we need to get some high time frame plans out. Where could Bitcoin actually potentially form some sort of bottom? Could it be around these yearly open levels? Not this chart over here. This has definitely not played out. We've broken down from this volume profile. So this is further showing distribution. We couldn't reclaim as per this path. So this was a trade of the week from a while back. Just further showing that all of the buyers and sellers in this range are underwater and now marking down the price. But what I want to know is where we can maybe see this go to. And again, more on that in the monthly outlook video. Make sure to check it out. Won't go diving into high time frame again today. Save that for weekly outlook as well on Sunday. But that is the Bitcoin update. I will take a look at Zcash because we're seeing this coin go pretty parabolic. Could be rude not to, right? So Zcash, using my coach's EMA bands. These are 12 and 21 EMA bands. Very simple. On the daily, you can see it's been respected. Every time it comes into them, produces a bounce, and new highs. So you want to expect that to continue. That's been how to play it on the trend following side. But of course, you want to also look at lower time frames to see what bands are being respected. Do we see the 4 hour being respected? Kind of, although you're setting a lot of traps below. So 4 hour currently is a little bit choppy. 15 minute, that's been where the trend is at. Look at this, respect, needs to bounce. Respect, needs to bounce. Respect, leads to bounce. Potentially starting to lose these bands now. So if you've been playing the longs on the 15 minute, that's been very profitable. But you may have to go to something like the 1 hour next to see, can that be the next trend support that produces the new high? So we've seen the 1 hour. This has led to new high after new high. People shorting this coin are just absolutely insane before there's any confirmation to short it. That's what's fueling this rally, you can tell. So don't be one of those guys, unless your systems say to, of course. But on the 1 hour, you can see that's your next trend support after that 15-minute fast trend, which has been playing out in this parabolic kind of price action zone over here. So does price come back to something at the 1 hour and find support again? That's what you're looking at in your trend following systems. That's potentially where the next longs are at. And if the 1 hour fails, then again, you just go up the time frame. Something like the 4 hour, not really respected. 6 hour, again, not really respected. So maybe you then have to go to something like the 12 hour if the 1 hour isn't respected and see, can we actually find support there? That's how you do it. You go up in the time frames, you see your low time frames first, what's being respected. Then you move up your higher time frames and continue the trend following strategies. I'll dive deeper into this on alt analysis on Saturday. But one last thing. So where is the chart over here? Let's look at what's going on in Ethereum. So Ethereum, you have this big cluster of key levels where you had the daily open of Wednesday, the New York open of Wednesday, the yearly open, the 50-week EMA, all converging around this zone where I said, you know, ETH, after rejecting this order block, really needs to find demand here if there's strength, because this is where high time frame buyers should be showing up, that yearly open, right? That's the 2025 candle open, which is now red. If we're going to lose this zone, then I think ETH goes back towards 3K, anywhere in this zone over here. So you got the lows to this wick. I think ETH is likely to revisit to fill in some of these inefficiencies. And you can call it 3K to 3.2K for numbers' sake, because below there, sellers are in control and buyers are showing that they do not have any force. So very simple on ETH. It needs to now set a trap here and reclaim this zone if it is bullish, because that would then show that sellers got trapped at the lows and this was all just one big bullish move where we set all of those shorts underwater below this zone and push price above. But it doesn't look like that's happening right now as we're below it. Wait for the signal if that does happen. But as I said, ETH's weaker than Bitcoin. Not the best for longs. It's actually setting up better for shorts. So below this zone, you're looking at bears fully in control. When it comes to ETH and stocks, well, they lost that key low I mentioned yesterday, the pivot level. As soon as it got below that low, led to this flush, and stocks actually made a new low. So some strength in crypto relative to stocks. That's to be expected. As I said, on the downside, stocks have gone up way more and been way stronger, so it's natural to see some mean reversion. This is now looking like it wants to set up for another leg lower, given this consolidation here right at the lows. So I'd be expecting further dips lower on stocks and a new leg, actually. And it's going to be interesting to see how does crypto hold up respectively to that. And gold set its trap above 4K, flushed those breakout longs below, and now it's trying to reclaim. So on gold, what I'd be looking at is, can we make a new high above here? And if we can get above here, then that's when you're looking for continuation towards this liquidity over here. Reject this, then you're looking at, does 4K hold? If 4K can't hold, then that probably catalyzes the next leg lower. So that's what I'm looking at when it comes to gold. That's what I'm looking at when it comes to crypto. Guys, help me get to 500 subscribers. I've been putting out this content from a real trader. If you value it, drop a like, drop a comment, help boost the algorithm. You guys supporting all helps me grow this channel. It's the reason I make a video every day. So see you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this morning markets.